So, who benefits from the war? How about people who sell electric cars? With petrol over £1.50 a litre and diesel more than £1.80, Auto Trader says they've seen an increase in interest in both new and used electric vehicles. We can speak to Fraser Brown. He's the founder of MotorVise, which advises car dealerships, and he also runs one himself, actually, Brown's of Richmond in North Yorkshire. Good morning, Fraser.
Good morning.
It's good to speak to you. Can you help us gauge, I suppose, whether you're seeing an interest, more of an interest in electric vehicles at this moment or since the war broke out?
Yeah, it's been a kind of perfect storm for electric vehicles. There's been lots of different things that have meant an electric vehicle starts to become extremely sensible as an option for people. So the first thing that we've seen is increasing fuel prices, which everybody's aware of. Local to where I am, yesterday driving around trying to get diesel for my wife's car, it cost us £1.90 per litre, which was basically means it's costing us more than 20 pence per mile to drive that car. Petrol cars, whilst the petrol is slightly cheaper than diesel at the moment, they don't do as many miles per gallon on average. So again, you're looking at about 20 pence per mile to drive a petrol car. So the final piece of the jigsaw is how much does it cost to drive an electric vehicle? Well, electric vehicles are costing between 1 and 2 pence per mile to drive. So the difference at the moment is more dramatic than it has ever been. Combine that with the fact that there's been a recent court case which has meant that VAT is likely to drop on public charging from 20% down to 5%. So we're likely to see a significant reduction in the cost of public charging. And the final piece of the jigsaw that's making electric vehicles particularly good news at the moment is the fact that the cost to charge an electric vehicle overnight has fallen significantly. For me, my overnight charging rate has dropped from 7 pence per kilowatt down to 3.5, which means for me it's cost me about £3.50 to fill up my 100 kilowatt car overnight.
Wow.
So overall, when you look at all of those things coming together, electric vehicles have become an absolute no-brainer. There are other things as well which contribute towards why it is such a good reason or a good time now to consider an EV.
Yes, I think that's so helpfully explained, Fraser. Can you help us understand to what extent electric vehicles are immune or at least resilient from the sorts of price shocks that we see when it comes to petrol and diesel? They're starting from a far lower base, as you've just outlined, a couple of quid to charge an EV to drive 100 miles compared to, say, £18 for a petrol car to drive the same distance. So even a price shock, I suppose, would result in an EV being cheaper to run.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if we think about it this way, at the moment, my electricity tariff is fixed for 6 months. The only reason I've seen a reduction is because the green tariffs were removed from that. So that's why mine hasn't gone up. So you can fix your electricity for up to 5 years. So that means you're not susceptible to the kind of shocks we've seen with the oil prices. There's other things to think about with electric vehicles as well. If you buy a new EV, yes, they drop in value significantly when you first drive it away. However, if you buy a used one, maybe 3 years old, take something like a Jaguar I-Pace, £78,000 brand new. You can buy a used one at about 2.5, 3 years old with 12,000 miles on the clock from less than £20,000 for £18,995. So when you look at a 2 or 3 year old electric vehicle, you have a double win. They're actually 10% cheaper than a similar age and mileage petrol or diesel car. And that's really remarkable. So you end up with the benefits of having a car that's cheaper in the first place. The cost to run it is significantly less than it is to run it. It's 10 times less at the moment, now that diesel and petrol prices have gone up so much. And what you end up with is a really strong case for electric vehicles, but they're much less susceptible to sudden price changes in fuel prices because of the fact you're able to set your electricity price in the short, medium or long term, depending on your approach to risk. So that makes them a good value all round.
Fraser, it's so good to speak to you. Thank you very much. By the way, I don't know, let's just do this. Peter gets in touch at 3 to 5p. Who's he with, please, as your electricity provider?
So you're looking at Octopus Energy at the moment, for me in this region, because Octopus Energy price their electricity regionally depending on the demand on the grid. So overnight where I live in the Yorkshire Dales. Yorkshire Dales is very low demand overnight. If you're down in London, you can't get 3.5 pence electricity. At the moment, my indications are it's around 8 pence per kilowatt overnight, whereas it was 11 pence before the green tariffs were removed.
Mm.
So it does depend where you are and which electricity supplier you're
Okay.
with.
Yeah.
Some of them are regionally priced, some of them are not. So it's worth looking on something like USwitch to find out the lowest EV overnight rate. Just one thing to be very clear about, if you don't have access to domestic overnight charging, you cannot get these kinds of savings. Public charging is a multiple of 10 more expensive than that. So it's really important that, if you're considering an EV because of the things that I'm saying in terms of how much you can save, you can only do that if you are looking to plug your car in at home.
Yes, very good. Fraser, thank you so much. Great to speak to you. That is Fraser Brown, who's the founder of MotorVise and of Browns of Richmond in North Yorkshire. Of course, there are many electricity providers and tariffs available, but I thought it was helpful to hear Fraser's experience, so there you are.